Hi, welcome back. I'm Jack Canfield, your host on Talking About Success. I'm here with Jim Kelley. He's the founder and director of ChangeWorks Institute, a training company focused on helping people get into and manage the flow of change in their lives. And Jim has spent the last 15 years learning and developing the self-directed change method, a multidisciplined approach to making changes and living well. And since 2009, Jim has been coaching clients from his offices in Portland, Oregon, and asks everyone the question, if everything were easier and more fun, would that be okay? I love that. We're going to talk about that. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Thanks
for being here.
Thanks. Good
so,
to be here.
How did you develop your work? How did you get into this?
It's kind of a Spider-Man story. Once upon a time, I really felt like loss and disappointment just defined my life. Mm-hmm. I had been through too many things. I'd gone from millionaire to zeroaire. I really tanked, and one of my children was stillborn. I lost my childhood sweetheart in a bitter divorce, and I just really I couldn't catch a break. And once I realized that this had defined me so completely, I thought, this is not the real me. I'm not stopping here. And so that was the beginning. And since then, I've become a coach, and I've really become super interested in helping people find how they can make their changes and direct their own path towards their own healing. In some ways similar to what I did, but I've learned a lot along the way.
Now, a lot of people hear the word, I became a coach, and they think you took like a 6-month class at a coaching institute.
It was one weekend, Jack.
And I know you have like a resume of trainings you've taken that are insane. Just because I want people to walk away from this interview, not just knowing about you, but saying, I would like to work with that guy. He could help me because I think you're that good. So just give us like maybe 45 seconds of some of the training you've done and some of the things you've learned how to incorporate it into your work.
That's great. Thank you, Jack. Yeah, it starts with kind of classic psychology and philosophy. But I needed to move into pattern work and communication and figure out how do I keep making the same mistakes over and over again. And so I became a student of neurolinguistic programming from people that started it. I learned about choice theory, did a long inquiry on emotional intelligence, went deep into that, became an emotional intelligence coach. I had learned as a young person how to do hypnosis, so I really became very competent in what people call hypnotherapy, medical hypnotherapy, if you will, or beyond guided imagery. How to really make unconscious changes. And then I dug into coursework. I've just studied a lot of different kind of psychology models and communication models to get to the bottom of how do I really show up and know what I'm talking about when somebody says, hey, this hurts me, what can I do about it?
Well, let's talk about that for a minute, because you've shared with me, offline, some of the clients you've had and some of the kind of things you've approached and some of the really challenging cases that you've been given, if you will, and the miracles you've been able to create, sometimes in a quick frame, sometimes over a period of time. Could you share a little bit about that?
You bet. I mean, to me, all change, it's kind of practical neuroscience. All change is about taking the conditioning that you've had and getting a problem moving, and then sort of systematically working on how's this problem built? How do you know how to have that problem? It's kind of a classic question. And then once you learn the sequence of it, you can start unraveling it. So yeah, I mean, I've had some wonderful things that have happened with people. Very often just helping a person reframe their experience will become a way to kind of create some motion, and then they can start doing the inquiry into, what are my options? That's what the past was. Is there anything that needs to be cataloged or work on? I might send somebody to a psychotherapist to work on something, or a psychiatrist to work on something if it's really a medical issue. They do surgery, but what I do is training, and really help a person learn how to drive their own bus and operate their own machinery Does that make sense?
It does, and that leads me to my next question, which is you call your work self-directed change.
Yes.
So you talked a little bit about that, but say more about why you call it that, and what's the model you might be working with, and why is that so important to you?
Yeah, thank you. You know, the change is the constant, and if we want to get unstuck, we have to grow and get into a growth mindset. And everybody has to really become self-responsible about what kind of changes they really want. And so if somebody comes to me and they've had enough of their problem and they're determined to have it be different and really say never again, at some point I'm going to learn my way out of this mess, and then they're ready to learn, then we could start training them how to observe their own patterns, calm themselves, become more mindful about what their activities are, the way they interpersonal relationship work, the relationship that they have with themselves, and make it, all of that kind of progressively go from, you know, I can't do it at all to, oh, this is what maybe I need to do, to, oh, I'm going to go in this direction and I'm going to keep discovering and discovering and discovering until I start getting one breakthrough after another. Mm-hmm. And so it's a progressive process. I often say, if we can just find a small thing that will make a big difference if you do it over and over again, then we'll start looking for those things and teaching people how to find it. I want everybody to be the leader of their own life. I want everybody to drive their own bus. I'm not the container for the distress. They need to learn how to do that. And so that's kind of where the joy starts to happen, actually, as you watch people grow in this.
Now, speaking of joy, you have a phrase, I think it's your favorite phrase: if everything were easier and more fun, would that be okay with you?
Yeah, would that be okay?
Where's that come from? And say more about that.
You know, this is what my friends call my have a nice day story. People have asked me for years, you know, at seminars and various things come up like, starting when you're a little kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? But later it becomes more proactive, like I want to, you know, get a promotion, or I want to have such and such a house. I'd like to be such and such a place in my life. My goal has always been to have a nice day. And people say when, and I say today, and as much as possible tomorrow and the day after that. And if I can line up all the different circumstances in my life, I'm going to get there. The days are going to get better. Because the future really, in many ways, is about managing opportunities and building resilience. So if I can give myself permission, would that be okay? Mm-hmm. Then maybe I can find ways to make things easier and more pleasant, which kind of hits the high points of, you know, what the cognitive school people talk about happy, stable, thriving, a positive narrative arc that a person has about themselves and their life. And so, yeah, if everything were easier and more fun, would that be okay? It's a permission thing. We can't make any core changes without permission. You know, I can't go into anybody's life and help them without their permission, and they can't go into their own life and help themselves unless they give themselves permission to have things be easier and okay.
Very good. Now, I know you talk about some myths about change that people have. I'm curious what those are.
Mm-hmm. I have a few, but I'll give you two of my favorites.
Okay.
The first one is that change is hard. And the reason I call that a myth, Jack, is because change is the constant. Change is what we're constantly in. There's never not change. And when we try and slam on the brakes and hold things up, that's trying to create same. We're trying to create static. We're trying to stop. That's where stuckness comes up. So change is hard, not really once you get it moving and get in the flow and start to understand the nature of the challenge. You know, if you wanted to do any kind of physical challenge, run a 10K or whatever, you'd train for it. And that's really what you do when you want to get good at changing something. So change is not necessarily hard, but it certainly takes effort. And then the second one that I think is really maybe even more important, Jack, is the idea that if I can conceive of a change, then I should be able to create that change. Mm-hmm. And it just doesn't really go like that. I don't go from idea to action without some internal steps at the very least, if not also some external steps. And so that's when we get into this discussion we were having earlier about the arc of change. where, every idea starts with a state, just check it out for yourself, of hesitation. Like, oh, can I do that? So there's my hesitation. And then I go, yeah, I don't know if I can, or wow, I really wish I could. Well, now we're in the frustration phase. And then the state shifts over to impatience, like, man, I really want that, like National Cookie Day, I want it. And then you go to, if that continues to build, you go to a strong sense of like, I really want to do this. You get to kind of like, that desire builds. But if you don't get to a sense of direction, then you don't know what to do next. And the discovery process really kicks in after sense of direction. So if I want to make a change, or, check this out for yourselves, if you want to make a change, you'll find that there's some internal states you have to traverse through, and also some preparation that often comes up on each one of those states to get ready to find that sense of direction so you can make that move. So just because I can conceive of a change, that doesn't mean I can actually do it without taking the steps. So it's kind of, pretty harmonious with your work in many ways.
Yeah, very well, very good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we only have a little bit of time left, but I want to ask you this, because I know this is one of your cutting edge projects right now.
Mm-hmm.
You train people, or facilitate them, teach, however you want to say it,
Mm-hmm.
to become better, or at least more comfortable and better speakers.
Yes.
Talk about that for a little bit.
Oh, the Speaking Confidence Crash Course. It
Yes.
started out a few years ago as Public Speaking Freedom, but it's developed, and basically people they want to be able to say something. Usually where it keeps coming to me is people that want to be able to speak in the meeting, or they want to be able to talk to the boss, or one fellow had 600 people he wanted to talk in front of in another country. And so there, again, are a set of internal states that we need to work through, that once we start to kind of have a different experience of ourselves, then it gets really very easy to become more and more conditioned to have speaking be something I'm confident about. It's easier. It's more fun.
Good.
I get to be okay.
I mean, I know you know the statistic that most people would rather die. In other words, their fear of public speaking is worse than their fear of death.
Yes.
And a comedian recently said most people at a funeral would rather be the person in the coffin rather than the one giving the eulogy. So I think that, why I think speaking is so important, and what I would encourage people to work with you on this, is that for me, what I've learned is that if you are speaking one-on-one, you can impact one person.
Correct.
But if you can speak in front of 20 people, you can impact 20. If you can speak in front of 100 or 500, whether it's selling something, enrolling something, bringing people over to your cause, inviting them to participate, or just wanting to share information with them, you just have much more impact in the world, which then can lead to more wealth, more comfort, more ease, more free time, all the things that most people want.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you get to feel better about yourself.
That part too.
Exactly.
Like,
hey, this really wasn't that hard. And that was actually, if I look back on it, or maybe next time it will be really fun, but that was an adventure.
Right. Exactly.
Hey, I get to be okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So you do these private sessions.
Yes.
You do short-term, long-term. You have this crash course in public speaking.
Yes.
And I know you're developing other seminars and so forth.
Yes.
And books and all this good stuff happening, courses and online things you're developing. So if people want to get in touch with you and find out more, where do they go? How do they find you?
They can go to Changeworks with an S, Institute.com. Or they can give me a call, 503-756-4148. I'd be happy to talk to them.
Okay, we'll put all that up on the screen so people can find you. Very
You
good.
bet.
Well, I've just known you for a brief time. I find you one of the more fascinating, intellectually clear, and really caring about people. So
thank you, Jack.
I'm a big fan of yours, and I
Thanks.
support
I'm
your
a big
work.
fan of yours too. I always have been. Appreciate you.
Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you so much for
All right,
having
you know
me.
where to go. You know what to do. So do it. All right, stay tuned. We'll be right back after this break.